Steel Curtain Network.
¡Pique la piques! ¡Pique la piques! ¡Pique la piques!
Pittsburgh Steelers fans, what's going on? Welcome back to another post-game show. I feel like I just watched a night game. Like, this was unbelievably long and painful. Steelers lose 24-10 to the Arizona Cardinals, but it is Bryan Davis's birthday. Bryan, I'll throw it to you first. Happy birthday.
Well, thank you very much. I've had a great day. That was a little bit of a pall on the proceedings, but I am having a good day. And if you see my new hat, did you know Zubas are back? My daughter bought me this, and it's from the Zubas brand from the 90s when Jeremy Betz was I don't even know if you were born yet when these were out, when Joey Buttafuoco was wearing this type of stuff. But yeah, this is my new lid, and it's actually on the back. I said, hey, this is just like Zubas. I look at the back, it's Z-U-B-A-Z. I'm like, there you go. Back to the 90s, baby.
Nice. Love it. And Jeremy Betz filling in for Dave Schofield. Jeremy, what's up?
Well, I was born in the 90s, and so I know what you're referencing here. I probably didn't wear one, obviously, as a little tyke. But, hey, I'm here. I'm doing all right. Could be better. I will say this, Bryan, that hat is not the worst thing that we've seen from the Steelers today. So.
Yeah, I will agree.
Yeah, the Steelers fall flat in more than one way against the Arizona Cardinals. We're going to talk about all of the injuries. We're going to break down the numbers. We're going to talk about who is to blame, if there's just one person or if it's maybe a bunch, all here on this post-game show. But we always start with the knee-jerk reaction, and that is where we get just that gut reaction after the game. Bryan, we'll start with you. What's your knee-jerk reaction?
Jeff, Jeremy, my first knee-jerk reaction is I'm glad we're not our good buddy Dave Schofield, who had to be drenched in that entire muck and crap today, and that's why he's not on the show. So at least we have it better than Dave right now. So my thoughts are with Dave. That's a long ride back when you're that wet. Really, guys, I've seen fire. I've seen rain. I've seen lonely times where I could not find a friend, but I never want to see the Steelers play like this again.
James Taylor. Very good. Very good. James Taylor gets a shout out on the post-game show. What about you, Jeremy? What's your knee-jerk reaction?
Glad it's over. I mean, just glad it's over at this point. The delays messed with everything, obviously, and then you've got just poor play across the board, mistakes, bad timing on things, poor coaching, poor play. Just glad it's over on to Thursday.
So for me, and this is going to bleed into my Let's Ride podcast tomorrow, Monday morning, in the first half when I give my thoughts on the game, is we have a new standard in Pittsburgh, and it's not new as in new to anyone that's listening to this show or listening to any of the shows on Steel Curtain Network. The standard anymore is not superior play. It's not being in a lot of 5-star matchups, as was once said. It's losing to inferior opponents. And I've tried to poo-poo that forever. I mean, I'm talking forever, well over a decade. Oh, that's not true. That's not true. And yet it always comes true that the Steelers lose one of these games to a team that has no business winning the game. And it's typically at home. Kudos to Jim Wexell, who called this. He said when they come off 2 back-to-back division games, he said this on the Steel City Insider on the Steel Curtain Network this week on his podcast. He said it normally doesn't go well. And I don't know what it was that early on in this game, I'll tell you what. This is just my knee-jerk reaction. I don't want to get into the nuts and bolts. We'll do that. When the Steelers go down and kick a field goal, they get the ball right back. They drive down. I'm thinking, okay, this is the chance that a good team gets this possession, puts points on the board, hopefully a touchdown, and then you're running away with this thing, literally, because they were running away with the game. And what do? They can't do it. They give up the 99-yard touchdown, and everything flipped on its head from that point forward. So the standard now is not just mediocrity, which a lot of people will cling to when they talk about Mike Tomlin. It's these debilitating losses that eventually you're going to find yourself looking back saying, what if? What if? And that's what's going to happen after this Arizona Cardinals win. So Let's start this thing off with the way we always start our post-game shows, and that's with Super Chats. Those that donate money to the show, we always read the comments. Let's get this started with Steel Dog 88 gives us $5. So with all the accolades Mike Tomlin gets for not having a losing season, this is another loss in the embarrassment column, which no one talks about. I just talked a lot about it, Steel Dog, so you're welcome. Thank you. Let's go to Philip. He gives us $1.90. That is true. We'll run down the injuries here shortly, but Minka Fitzpatrick he fractured his break. Nonetheless, he broke his hand. He was able to get it casted during one of the weather delays and was able to play the rest of the game. So how effective are you going to be with a cast on your hand? Well, catching a football might be challenging, but he was able to play. It's worth noting. A Steele gives us $4.99. He said, warning, I'm petty. Tomlin's teams will always be the middle of the pack. It may be frustration speaking, but we look like a joke. Teams used to fear us. I feel like it's been a long time since teams feared the Pittsburgh Steelers, but maybe that's just me. And then Strictly Hobbies gives us $1.99. Said, who is responsible for the new standard? I'll tell you who's responsible. Everyone knows who's responsible. Listen to Let's Ride, and I'll tell you too. There you go. We'll plug the show tomorrow. Make you come back wanting more. So let's start this thing off with the injury since it got brought up. So Minka Fitzpatrick, yes, broken hand. I don't think he's going to miss time though. Mike Tomlin said he returned to the game. Landon Roberts, groin, did not return, tried to, couldn't do it. Seemed very reminiscent of Cam Hayward in terms of trying to go back out there, and you just can't when you have a pulled groin. Then you have Kenny Pickett leaving with an ankle injury, was seen with a walking boot, no idea. Mike Tomlin, when asked in the post-game press conference whether he would go to Mason or stick with Mitch, he said, I'm not ruling out Kenny being able to play. That's worth noting, but we'll see. On a short week, I don't know. You also have Isaac Seumalo with a shoulder injury. He was not able to return. And TJ Watt clearly was hampered by an ankle, even though he downplayed it in his post-game press conference saying, hey, I'm fine. I'm not going to talk about what happened or anything like that. He said that it made it sound like he's been fined for comments made by the league, and he was not about to get fined again. So I'm not sure what he's referring to, if it was something malicious. It's going to be interesting. Bryan, we'll start with you. Thoughts about these injuries before we go into individual players?
Wow, this is losing a Landon Roberts is a huge deal, especially you lost two other guys, Cole Holcomb, back on November 2nd, and then the very next week, you go ahead and lose Quan Alexander. And this is a guy that was doing everything. He was leading your team in tackles. Now, you're not losing him for the entire year, but we've seen groin injuries linger, and this is not a quick fix. This isn't come back on Thursday. This is not one of those things that is, this might be Christmas or afterwards to get a guy like Landon Roberts back like this. And you saw it with him out. James Conner, who has always been a good back, but James Conner feasted on this team. They also did a lot more stuff up the middle, with passing with a Landon Roberts gone too. So losing a Landon was big. Losing Kenny Pickett was big too. And I know we're going to get into this more, but when you lose him in the spot they do, I'm going to go ahead and kick the field goal at that point, because everybody knows when you're bringing a cold quarterback in, what's going to happen. And it was very Canada-esque. It was very predictable at that point. Minka Fitzpatrick, what are you going to do? Is he going to play with a cast? I mean, it's possible, but
yeah, he will.
But this guy's a warrior, and he's a true Steeler, and we're finding that out more and more. And especially you lose the guy and you see the spirit of this guy, but a 75 or a 50% Minka is better than 0, number 39. And then you're looking at some of the other players, Isaac Seumalo. That's a huge deal to me too. I hope he is not gone. He had a very nice block on an early Najee Harris run. And so you lose that collection of guys. It's just taking you out of the game. But they didn't look right from the beginning.
Jeremy, go ahead and chime in on the injuries here.
Yeah, I tweeted out watching the game for the Steel Curtain Network account that this game could, for all intents and purposes, end the Steelers season with the injuries potentially. And you're talking about obviously a loss in an AFC where every single loss hurts you because there are so many teams in the running here. And then you're talking injuries now too that are just compiling at positions where you can't have them. I mean, one of your best defenders, honestly, this season has been Landon Roberts, and you are already out all your linebackers that you had starting beforehand. And so you're running into these guys that you picked up off the street, that you pulled out of retirement, that are now going to be starting and playing significant snaps for you probably moving forward. And then that's not even to talk about the quarterback position, the most important position on the field, a player in Kenny Pickett who, we've seen it, a lot of times he needs portions of a game to get going. And yeah, it didn't look great for the first 3 drives. The first drive was pretty good. And then you had, a situation where you're down at the goal line. This game to me totally changes on his injury because Mitch Trubisky it isn't on his level as a backup quarterback. And I don't think that you can leave this game saying, well, either one, Mitch Trubisky or Kenny Pickett, gives the Steelers the same chances at being successful this year. This is a Kenny Pickett led team now. And I know he's not the best quarterback in the league, but if he's going to miss significant amount of time with an ankle injury, and if you saw him walk off the field, he was visibly frustrated and upset and did not look to be in good spirits after not being able to put a lot of weight on it. So this could be a game that completely alters the season, not just because you lose to a 2-10 Cardinals team, but because you lose so many key players on the offensive and defensive sides of the ball.
It's very good points. Very good points by both. Let's get to some super chats here. Tom plays games. Tom Muir gives us $5. So today's game reminds me of the quicksand comment from Shane Falco. They were completely small bitten. Bryan, what?
Who?
He's Shane Falco.
Oh, from the Washington Sentinels.
I had to read that. So
yes, I believe he had a quote, and usually Jeff won't let me do this, but since it is my birthday, I can say this. Wounds heal. Glory lasts forever. Oh, I forgot. Chicks dig
scars. Yeah, you don't even know this. Oh my gosh. Okay, just stop.
Pain heals. Chicks dig scars. Glory lasts forever.
All right, Brandon Keene gives us $1.99. It's a terrible timing with the Pats on Thursday. The defense definitely losable is what he says. Todd Williams gives us $1.99. I'll have to see if I can find his comment. Brandon Keene gives us another $1.99. He said, we will see Miles Jack Thursday, almost guaranteed. Yeah, there's a chance that if a Landon Roberts injury is deemed to be serious, he goes on IR, in which case Miles Jack could be promoted to the 53-man roster. Afton Forehead gave us $2. Did we forget how to tackle? It certainly looked like that on more than one occasion when James Conner got moving. Some people made business decisions and chose not to tackle. They just said, go ahead. Philip gives us another $1.99. He said Deontay does it again, celebrating down by 14. Yeah, that was a bad look. I'll tell you what was another bad look was them taking their sweet old time, moving down the field, and just they're huddling up. They're taking all this time. So, yeah. But, yeah, okay, let's go to Justin Gall. He gives us $9.99. He says, take away a few errors and injuries, and we came out rolling. Both sides of the ball looks worse than it is. Injuries are the real story that will pave the season. I thought the start was okay. Yeah, the defense came out firing on all cylinders, and then it just fell apart. Let's hear Razor Shade Slayer. Hope I said all that correctly. $1.99 said, well, the playoffs very much in jeopardy, had to win. Yeah, I mean, it's a tight race with the AFC playoff picture. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Todd Williams, $4.99. We're usually good at covering the tight end. What do you think happened today? Well, the inside linebackers happened today. When you lose
injuries,
your number one guy, and he's not even the best coverage guy in and of itself, like it's bad. Bryan?
Mike Tomlin said something. Somebody asked them about, that rookie tight end, and he almost acted. I don't know exactly what he said, but he almost acted like, yeah, we weren't familiar with him, so yeah, we couldn't cover him. I don't remember exactly what he said, but he kind of dismissed it by, yeah, we didn't know much about him, and yeah, he beat us. Yeah. That wasn't a good look either.
No, definitely not. Tom Muir gives us another $2. Who starts at quarterback next week, Mitch or Mason? Mike Tomlin said it's going to be Mitch if Kenny can't go. So I don't know if we want to debate this because the coach said that who it's going to be. And then Joe BBB gave us $1.99. I'll see if I can find some of these comments here. as we move through. We're going to be hearing from Dave Schofield, who was, oh my gosh, what a trooper sitting through that game. Oh my goodness. He sent Bryan and I a message at one point and goes, is it bad if I want to leave? And I said, I would have left an hour ago.
I told him to go home too. I mean, because you know how miserable it is when you're wet, and you knew at that point that with that rain, they weren't showing heart. I would have left.
Yeah.
And that makes
Jeff,
if that makes me a bad fan, I'm a bad fan.
Yeah.
Jeff, you're wrong. You never would have gone in the first place.
You're right. You're exactly right. You're exactly right.
Welcome aboard, Jeremy. That's good. I like that.
We don't. Hey, but here's the thing. We don't live in Pittsburgh. It's not like, oh, I'm going to leave early and go 20 minutes down the road to my house. Like, we live in Maryland. Like, it's a long drive. If I was waiting, that second delay was really, really lengthy. And I probably would have said, all right, I'm getting a head start on traffic. Screw this. Here we go. Oral Richards gives us $2 as well. I got to find people who are donating money, which we appreciate. But if you want us to read a question, I'm just not seeing it. Here we go. We got Oral Richards comment here. He said, Kenny Pickett's mediocre. Trubisky, his body language is downright. Please don't play me. We will be average till we get a quarterback and rebuild the inside linebacker group. We need to burn it down if average is not our goal. Man. Hey, everyone's entitled to their opinion. I'm not here to tell anyone how they should think or anything like that. But while we wait for Dave to join the show, we'll start talking about this team from a more individualized perspective, and we'll always start in the same spot, and that's with the quarterback position. Kenny Pickett, we'll go through the stat lines here. He finished 7 of 10 for 70 yards. Obviously, that's a 7-yard average. He was not sacked, no touchdowns, no interceptions, an 89.6 rating. Mitch Trubisky came in, finished 11 for 17, 117 yards, 6.9-yard average. He did throw a touchdown, no interceptions. There was a fumble that was, I guess, attributed to Mitch, which was a bad snap, in my opinion, by Mason Cole. He had a 104.3 rating. So let's start off talking about Mitch Trubisky and Kenny Pickett. Bryan, go ahead.
Kenny Pickett was average today. And the Steelers really lost this game when they were driving down the field and they settled for a field goal right away. That's something that showed me that they were going to be in trouble. And the reason it showed me that is because when Kenny gets rushed and Kenny's not handling pressure right now, that's a big problem. And I saw that early on. And he could have been he was okay in this game. They might have fared better. I want him back. And I really do, because Mitch is not the answer. But he would have been good enough to win this game possibly today if circumstances were different. But he's still perfect, and he's a far way away from good right now. Mitch Trubisky coming in. For all of you that want Mitch or you want Mason, I'm telling you, there's a reason these guys are number 2 and number 3. And there's a reason that they are not in a different uniform. It's because that's where they are. If Mason Rudolph, there's a lot of people pining for Mason right now. If Mason was great or Mason was good enough, he would be in another uniform, because teams did not line up to sign him in the offseason. But right now, this is the team that you got.
Yeah. Jeremy, talk about the quarterbacks. What do you think?
Yeah, I thought on the first drive, obviously, you had some really good decisions, some accurate throws from Kenny down the field. Play action pass was working. And 7 of 10 for 70 yards, 7 yards per completion. That's not horrific. 7 yards per attempt. That's not horrific. That's decent. You'd like to see that up in the 8s probably for the course of a game, but obviously he didn't play the whole thing. So I thought he was just fine. I thought he missed a couple reads on that drive, especially on the play where he scrambled and tried to get the touchdown. He missed a wide open Calvin Austin the third on the sprint left after or before the snap. And you just gotta hit those throws, and then you don't have the injury, and then the whole game looks different, and you have a touchdown there. So, it's vision things, and I still say, if he comes back from injury even this week or next week, that he's obviously your guy for this year, and I don't think you can say he's not the guy moving forward either at this point yet, because he's basically learning how to rethink offense here. And it's tough tough to watch. But I don't hate what I saw from him before he went out, except for rolling into a sack and the missed reads on a couple plays. But I thought the throws were good. I thought he hit the targets when he made the throw, so that was all right. And then Mitch Trubisky, I mean, he's going to have a good rating, 104.3 quarterback rating, but that's that garbage time touchdown drive. That's not really anything. He didn't spark anything. There were chances for this team to come back, only down 2 scores, and the offense couldn't get it done. And then the defense, the injuries there, I believe, played a huge role in the middle of the field to them not being able to stop the Cardinals, who I said in the lead up to this game have a decent offense. They've got decent weapons. You're going to have to score to beat them, and they didn't score. So that's just where I think that it went wrong here, and the quarterbacks are at fault to a point, but anytime you have those injuries, it's going to make it even harder.
Oh my gosh, Jim in Florida just said Kenny Pickett equals Bo Bennett. Now, for those Penguin fans that know who Bo Bennett is, oh my gosh. You're talking about an uber talented guy that could just never stay healthy. Like, he was always hurt. What a kiss of death talking about a player, comparing him to Bo Bennett of the Pittsburgh Penguins. Oh man. Anyways, Bo Bennett's actually a great follow on Twitter if you haven't. He's hysterical. But let's go back to the quarterback play. It was underwhelming. Here's the thing. I've dumbed down my expectations for the Steelers quarterback play, so much so that I don't even think it's about the quarterback play. It's about the running game. Can the Steelers run the ball? And if they can, the quarterback play will be okay, because as long as the offensive coordinator calls enough, basic play action passes, there should be open players, because they do have enough skill down the field to George Pickens, Pat Freiermuth, Deontay Johnson to move the ball. You saw that early in the game. And then all of a sudden, a few bad reads. And then once Pickett leaves the game, you're wondering, okay, Mitch, we know what Mitch is. Mitch typically is a guy, he's going to go in there guns blazing. Let's let it rip. I don't care who I'm throwing it to. It might be the other team, but I'm going to let it rip down the field. And we didn't. We saw, go back to last season, early on, weeks 1 through half of week 4, and it was check down Mitch, check down Mitch, check down Mitch. So I don't even know what to think about this. The quarterback play was bad. And like I said, my expectations have been dumbed down so much that you kind of just put your hands up and say, yeah, it is what it is. I'll talk about the offseason after the season, about what are they going to do and all that stuff. And for me, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole just yet. Now let's go with, let's talk about the passing. We'll continue with the passing. We'll talk about the receivers, pass catchers. George Pickens leads, 86 yards on 5 targets, 4 catches, 21.5 yard average. Deontay Johnson, 4 for 33 with a touchdown on 5 targets. Pat Freiermuth, 3 for 29 on 5 targets. Allen Robinson, 3 for 19. Najee, 2 for 14. Calvin, 1 for 10. And Jaylen Warren, 1 for -4 on 3 targets. In total, they had 187 yards as pass catchers. Bryan, what did you think about the pass catchers today?
With the exception of the drop from Jaylen Warren, which you don't see a lot of those on passes, I didn't see a lot of the dropsies. I thought the hands were better this week. Now, I didn't have a chance to see the all-22 and see what kind of routes were being run, but I kind of liked what I was seeing from the receivers. I felt that even Deontay Johnson seemed more inspired this week after the apology and the debacle last week in Cincinnati. But I like George Pickens' game. He just was not getting enough targets. Muth was not getting enough targets. This game was not good, and it did not afford them a lot of opportunities to throw the ball today.
Yeah. Jeremy, thoughts on the pass catchers?
Yeah, I mean, George Pickens obviously makes big plays. He makes good catches. He's awesome to watch. When the ball goes up in the air and you know it's going his direction, you just feel good about it. You feel good about what's potentially going to happen down the field. And 5 targets isn't enough, like Bryan said. You got to get him more targets, and he needs to be featured in this offense. We've talked about that a lot. I would say, we can talk about Deontay Johnson maybe here a little bit, and just I don't hate that he's happy that he scored a touchdown, but I just think in the moment you don't make a big deal out of that, because you're still down 2 touchdowns. You still got a lot of work to do. Just a little tone deaf from him in this game here, and that seems to kind of be maybe this group of wide receivers, they're a little bit tone deaf, but they make big plays when they're afforded the opportunity. You just got to get them more opportunities and play a cleaner game. And so I don't know how much blame we can put on them for how this game turned. The catch rates are pretty good here. If you look at targets to catches, it's 27 targets and 18 receptions. That's not bad. You can't hate that too much. And obviously George Pickens has 21.5 yards per reception here. That sounds to me like you need to get him the ball a little bit more, but you can't blame them for the loss. I think this has more to do with coming out flat in the middle portions of the game and injuries.
Yeah. And let's also understand, and this is going to tie us into the next facet of the offense, is everyone says, we need to get more opportunities. You need to give them more opportunities. Well, if you're running the ball really well, you're going to lean on that running game. You're going to minimize the damage that can happen in the passing game. And that's what the Steelers' MO has been this entire second half of the season, going all the way back to, when did the streak start? Was it Tennessee or was it before that? I'm trying to think. Or was it Jacksonville that they had their first 150 yards on the ground? I can't remember which game.
Tennessee.
That's okay. Yeah. So here you have the running game of the Steelers, which still totals 130 yards. They average 4.2 yards per carry, 31 carries. Najee has 16 for 63 for 3.9 yards per carry. Jaylen Warren, 9 carries for 59 yards, a 6.6 yard average. They did not have a touchdown and a long run of 18 yards. They were moving the ball at a decent clip, especially in the first half. And that's, again, one of those things where it's like, well, yeah, we want to throw the ball down the field and highlight Pickens and the Deontay. But at the same time, if you're running the ball, this is the MO for the Steelers. That's their mode of transportation. That's what they love. Yeah. So, Bryan, let's talk about the running game. What do you think?
I didn't think the running game was bad today. I wish they would have had a little more holes. I did not like the play call. I thought Najee Harris was left out on an island in that situation on the goal line. I think that was a big move with them stopping them and going 99 yards. I think that just killed the game right there, and they did not come back from it. But the running game never stopped. And in this game, when you're down by 14, Mitch was throwing a whole lot more, and you weren't relying on it at the end. So you don't get an opportunity to get those 200 yards on the ground and control the game when you're behind.
All right, let's take a quick pause here and let's get Dave Schofield in, who's just got back to his vehicle. He has labeled himself as wet and freezing. Dave, what's going on? Welcome to the show.
Dave.
Hey, guys. Yeah, I am in my car. 6:15, and I'm in my friggin' car, finally.
You're a saint for sitting through that, by the way.
Honestly, there was a time I'm like, if I knew they were running the Clipper for sure, I would have bolted. But I'm like, I'm not leaving the stadium, going and standing down there next to the water and be freezing and everything. So I was trying to find someone who had a view to tell me, are they running the Clipper? But I'm just like, you know what? I'll go back to my seat. We will tough it out. That was one of the most miserable experiences I've ever had with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So the next time my daughter goes to a game, hopefully it'll only be better.
What was the failed 4th and goal in front of you, Dave, or was that at the opposite end?
That was at the opposite end.
So
good.
I was going to ask if you had an up close and personal view of the call or not.
I did not, but what's crazy is as I was talking to people around me, I was like, hold on here. Let me plug it here. I don't know if you guys are getting backlash from me. There you go. I was saying, if they would have kicked the field goal, I'd have been mad that they kicked the field goal. Sorry, I listened to the show bad. I disagree. It would have been really frustrating. And also, I was like, I would have loved for them to have been under center. But at the same time, Mitch Trubisky's coming in taking his first snap. It's probably better to do it out of shotgun because it should be an easier process if you have a center that can actually snap the ball to the quarterback. And not trying to do something fancy and running wide. I'm like, I actually like what they tried to do. It was just the first time they got stopped running the whole game at that point. Yeah. So they just didn't execute it well for that play. Do you guys know, was that the play or was it later on when Sayamalu got hurt? I have no idea where that
I didn't know that Sayamalu got hurt until
the
later
broadcast.
In the first half.
Yeah, the broadcast said it was on the same play that Kenny Pickett got hurt.
Wow.
Oh, really? So they tried to run where Sayamalu was, but it wasn't Sayamalu. See that?
Correct. Yeah.
That one I don't get why they wouldn't run to the right side. So that might have been it, but I didn't want them to try to do something fancy out wide or something. And they just got beat on that play. And then we saw that 93 can't even hold the jock strap of number 50, because the difference between those two players was just ridiculous. And you saw it on the 99-yard drive where Roberts tried to come in, got hurt again. And that made such a huge difference with the defense for the rest of that game. They just were, it felt like it wasn't just that they would go after him. It's so many times he's trying to call out different things going on, and Minka's coming up and correcting it. So things just were not going well with that. But man, 2 delays. They're sitting there trying to get us out of the stadium. But yet I'd look to the aisle to my left and the aisle to my right, and it's just people standing there that can't get out. There was physically no room for people to get out of that lower area. We finally had to just try to move down because we were getting so drenched and get out there a little bit. And then the second one, we decided that we wouldn't wait as long for that one and try to get out of there. And it was unlike any experience I've ever had before. It was just crazy. And then the Steelers sucked. I mean, my goodness. Everything's going wrong when Boz even misses a field goal.
Yeah.
It's just nothing was going right. I loved the big hit on 2nd and short to Pickens to set that up. But it seemed like the Steelers would run after that. They'd run on 1st down, get anywhere from 5 to 8 yards, insist on throwing it on 2nd and short every time after that. And then they wouldn't convert. And then they'd have to throw up again on 3rd down. I'm like, just run the ball and get the 1st down. Yep. So, because until they were stuffed at the goal line, there was really no answer for the running game. So, sorry, I gave my little soliloquy and everything else. Don't want to hold up your guys' time now.
All right, Dave. Have a safe trip back. Get dry. We'll be in touch. Take it
All
easy.
right, everyone, enjoy the misery together.
Yes,
we'll try.
Yeah.
I just noticed wet and freezing there. I must have not been paying attention to that. Why do I picture Dave going into Sheets and just taking his jersey and everything off down to his boxers and t-shirt and going under the dryer?
Well, that's almost, I thought you were going to go Jeff Reed there and say like he was going to just go to town and just beat the crap out of a paper towel dispenser or something. Like, I don't know which direction you were going with the Sheets comment.
That's just straight out of the mind of Brian Anthony Davis is what that is.
It sure is. All right. So let's go with Jeremy. I don't think we had a chance to talk to you about the running game. Go ahead.
Yeah. I thought that they were hit or miss in this game, especially as the game wore on. There, you'd have a 0-yard play or a negative play, and then you'd have your 13-yard burst, your 18-yard burst from Jaylen Warren. I thought an interesting stat that Brooke Pryor put out before this game was that the Steelers are 5-0 this season when Jaylen Warren gets 10 or more rushing attempts. Guess how many he had today? 9 rushing attempts. 9 rushing attempts for Jaylen Warren today. 6.6 yards a carry. He was the better back today. I think part of the issue here is that Tomlin needs to figure out who's got the hot hand and ride that person a little bit more. And not that Najee wasn't having some good runs, but he was the one getting stopped at the line of scrimmage more often than Warren was as well. So a little more balance there would be great. But again, I just don't know if the offense builds off of what this running game can do well enough yet. The play action on the first drive was fantastic, but how many times after that do you recall seeing play action? We'll have to go check the advanced metrics later on, but it just doesn't seem like there was a lot of it in this game. And if you're not building off of what your running game can do, another 130 yards on the ground today, that's great. But if you're not building off of that in the passing game, then you're limiting what your ceiling is. So the runners did all right. I thought that they could have been more effective. I thought maybe the offensive line was a little rough. We'll talk about them in a minute. In run blocking, a hit or miss there as well. But as far as the running backs go, I don't think you can complain too much. They made plenty of big plays.
I'll tell you what I can complain about. Screw the hot hand. Jalen Warren should be your 2-minute drill, 4-minute drill, no huddle back. Like that is
absolutely that.
blatantly obvious. And when the Steelers needed to move the ball and they ended up scoring a touchdown with Deontay Johnson, it wasn't Jalen Warren. It was Najee Harris. And I'm thinking, Jalen Warren's better at blitz pickup. He's a better receiver. He has more burst in terms of lateral quickness if he needs to get out of bounds in that situation. Like that's the situation where screw the hot hand. He's the guy in that setting. I'm not saying that Najee Harris brings no value. He does. But at that time, like in those situations, I think that's when you have to manage your team the best. Hey, undrafted, first rounder, I don't care. He's the better back in this situation. That's what they need to do. And I just don't know if they will do that. And that's frustrating.
No. Yeah.
Last thing here before we take a break. Let's talk about the offensive line. Bryan, go ahead. Chime away. The offense, correct me if I'm wrong, they didn't give up a sack. No, they didn't. They did not give up a sack and only 5 quarterback hits on the day. So in terms of pass protection, by the statistics, better. Bryan, what do you think?
Was the offensive line that bad today? A lot of people are calling for a new center, and I get that, but really, there were still enough moments when Kenny Pickett from the beginning was getting rushed and getting hurried and turning into a sack, doing his spinneroonie into a sack. Actually, not into a sack, but into a ball carrier. And what was it? It was a sack, wasn't it?
No, he spun into a pressure and then got rid of the ball.
Okay, and then he got rid of it.
Yeah, threw it away. If I remember correctly. Yeah.
But you know what? I don't think the offensive line was horrible, but just not enough. Just not enough today. Mason Cole does get on the loser list, I'm sure, for the snap, for a lot of things, for moving up, for helping out Seumalo get injured on that one play. I just did not think the offensive line did anything to create enough time for the Pittsburgh quarterbacks or enough room, especially on that 1-yard run that was nothing. That 4th and 1 run.
Yeah, Jeremy, thoughts on the O-line?
Yeah, again, hit or miss here. Their good blocks were great. Their bad ones were really bad. So a little more consistency, please, from the guys. I think you guys would say this as well. I think against 4-man pressures, maybe even, if a team brings a fifth guy, they're okay. In pass protection, they're pretty good there. But as soon as the defense starts disguising blitzes and overloading a side, this offensive line doesn't know how to shift into blocks. I mean, there's a still shot of the speed rush that the Cardinals defense ran from the right side of the offensive line, where you've got Mason Cole and James Daniels blocking air together, blocking each other, like running into each other in the middle of the field, and 2 guys running beside them, straight at Kenny Pickett, straight into the backfield. That's the one where he had to roll out of it and chuck the ball away on a 3rd down. And so you're talking about missed opportunities in those types of situations. So when it's mano y mano, I think they're pretty good. But when teams start disguising their pressures and they start overloading sides and they start bringing zeros and multiple pressures off of one side, stunts and things like that, the offensive line has real trouble picking that up. I don't know if that's an inexperienced quarterbacks behind him that aren't making the protection reads, or if that's Mason Cole, who's supposed to make protection reads as well, not doing his job and also compounding with bad snaps. That's not a good look for your center, and something the Steelers would probably address.
Yeah, I think that it's a combination of, I said this on Twitter during the game. If I was the Cardinals, they have nothing to lose in this game. I'm sending the house every play until they beat it. Send the house every play. Like Jeremy said, they struggle picking up overloaded blitzes on one side, or if they're just, hey, like we said, zero, we're just going. They struggle there. So until you get burned, blitz the house. Mason Cole is beyond frustrating. This past offseason, I wanted the Steelers to draft a center. There were some good centers still around, and they didn't. And they chose to go in different directions, which is fine because this draft class has been – it's been good. We'll put it that way in terms of their play and productivity on the field. But this offseason, center is a huge, huge need on this team. Mason Cole was a stopgap and nothing more. And now they need to find their next guy who, and it's not just the snaps, by the way. I don't want to come off thinking like I'm cherry picking the bad snap that resulted in a fumble and equated in a touchdown, but it's just not good enough. Just not good enough at all. All right, so here's what's going to happen. We're going to take a quick break. If you're watching live on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, we're not going anywhere. And if you're listening on the audio side, you're going to hear a word from our sponsors. We will be right back. All right, Steeler fans, welcome back to the second half. You stuck with us like Dave Schofield stuck it out in the rain. Good for you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Let's go to some super chats here before we get started in the second half. Joe BBB gives us $1.99, says our annual loss to a terrible team, hashtag the standard. Sadly, that's true. Let's go with Timothy Whiteside. Give us $19.99. Thank you, Timothy. I can't believe that I'm saying that Mason should have come in, but Mason should have come in. I guess the question is, what did Mitch do that would have said, okay, yank him?
Yeah.
Like, that's what I'm trying to think about. Like, what did he do that you'd say, okay, pull him off the stage. Let's get someone else out there. I get it. We're all pissed, but I just don't know if that would have done anything. Crystal Privet gives us $2. Said Mason Cole needs to get Cole in his Christmas stocking. Maybe he will. I don't know. And then another one from Crystal, $2. The bright side, no more low energy 1 p.m. games. Oh, I kind of like the 1 p.m. games, Crystal, to be honest. But hey, you're not a fan. That's fine. Everyone teach their own. All right. Let's talk about the defense. The Steelers defense struggled at times against Kyler Murray and crew. The run defense is where I want to start. They gave up 150 yards on the ground, 105 to James Conner, who averaged 4.2 yards per carry, scored 2 touchdowns with a long of 29 yards. Michael Carter, 4 for 25, and Kyler Murray himself, 9 for 20. When you look at the tackles, Michael Walker leads the team with 10 total tackles. Alex Highsmith and Mark Robinson totaling 8 behind him. TJ Watt was 6. What did you all think about this game in terms of the run defense? Brian, we'll start with you.
I'll say this. They gave up a lot. James Conner is still a good running back. And there's not many players that I root for from other teams. James Conner will be one of them. Of course, I was not rooting for him today, but if anybody's going to beat you, it's kind of nice to see that James Conner has some good fortune. But with that being said, I'm still devastated that he did it against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think this was more of a personnel issue today. Absolutely. When you lose a Landon Roberts, things change because that defense looked pretty good in the early going. It didn't look like they were really going to give up way too much. I thought they had a chance to really dominate in this game. Roberts goes down. It kind of changed things. Then you had some discipline problems, and that might be more of the secondary, but just some dumb penalties on that defense as well that we'll talk about probably more when we get to the defensive backfield. But Dave said something that I thought was very poignant, and it was the fact that number 93, Mark Robinson, can't hold a candle to Landon Roberts or anybody else. And everybody keeps calling for this guy's number and calling for this guy's number. And probably people hate when I say this, but there's a reason these guys are not playing. There's a reason they're not in there, and Mark Robinson is not the guy.
Yeah, you're good. Good point. Good, Jeremy.
Yeah, I think that, obviously when you lose just so many players at one position, you're going to have major issues there. And the linebacker group, for all the good that the front seven does, the front four does at stopping the run, the backside pursuit is pretty good from these guys and on the edge. And then whoever if you've got Cam Hayward and Larry O in there, they're pretty good. If you got Cam and Benton in there, they're pretty good at stopping the run. But the real thumpers are the linebackers. That's where you've seen the success. And when you lose your Landon Roberts, when you lose your middle linebacker that is handling all of that and playing so well, then you're going to struggle. And so giving up 150 yards on the ground to the Cardinals, it's disappointing because of the total number and because of the fact that it was a direct leader to victory here. James Conner, 2 rushing touchdowns. That you couldn't stop him in the red zone where you needed to. that's tough. But you've got to attribute some of this to injuries, where you're talking about, like Bryan said, inserting guys that just are not up to snuff. That there's a reason that they're sitting on the bench and waiting their turn. And when you start asking those guys to play like your starter, then that's where you get guys out of position and out of their comfort zone, and that's where the struggles start to happen. So I think run defense, it's not a huge issue, I think, when you're healthy, but if you can't get healthy, then there's going to be some problems here moving forward, obviously.
Yeah, I think injuries are a big factor in the run defense, as well as when you think about just fatigue. Fatigue starts to set in after a while, and you get the time of possession is slanted in one direction. And yeah, it happens. It happens. It's not an excuse. It still sucks. And that's definitely probably going to be on my losers list tomorrow. But nonetheless, it's definitely an issue moving forward. Let's talk about the passing game. Kyler Murray throws 13 of 23 for 145 yards, 6.3 average, did throw a touchdown, almost had a second one, but it was called back due to a holding call. 2 sacks, 13 yards, an 89.9 yard rate, an 89.9 rating. Trey McBride, the tight end, which kudos to you, Jeremy, on my Friday Let's Ride. You called it. You said this is good. This has been their go-to guy. 8 catches on 9 targets for 89 yards, an 11.1 yard average, and a touchdown. And then after that, Elijah Higgins had 1 catch for 21 yards, and he was their next leading receiver. It was one guy. Trey McBride and James Conner were the offense, and you'll throw in Kyler Murray as the quarterback. They were the offense, which makes this even more infuriating. Bryan, what were your thoughts on the pass defense? Which, by the way, let me get these pass defense numbers up there. TJ Watt had 1. Larry O had 1. Keanu Benton had 1. Not a pass defense by a defensive back. That's interesting. Bryan, go ahead.
Well, I did not think that they had a very good game at all. Joey Porter had some tight coverage in a few places, but was still getting beat. He did have, did he have 2 penalties or 1? But it just seemed like it was lackluster all day back there. I thought there was just some dumb penalties. I did not like Joey Porter's penalty in the end zone to put the ball, I believe it was at the 1 yard line or the 2 yard line. The one in the end zone, was it in the end zone where he came out of nowhere? I thought that was an egregious penalty. They were just, I just thought they were getting beat a little too much. And on that play that got called back, it was, the announcers were trying to say that Patrick Peterson had good coverage, but that was a broken play and it floated up there for a long time. It just didn't seem like Rondale Moore should have come down with that ball. And I just feel like the defensive backs right now are not playing good enough. This is not an indictment on the future of Joey Porter Jr. I didn't think it was his best game.
Okay. Jeremy, what are your thoughts on the secondary and the pass defense? You're muted, Jeremy. Come on. It's not amateur hour.
Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry.
He gets called up to the majors. You never hear me do that.
Background. No, never.
I do it all the time.
This isn't the Steelers fix. We'll get it together.
Oh man. Wow. That's a shot. Glad to know you listen though. And you know what,
I do
what goes
listen.
on.
I listen to all of our stuff. I listen to every podcast we put out.
Check out the Steelers Fix if you don't already. Shameless plug there. No. So Bryan, I think when you talk about the secondary here, and stats wise, it looks really good, right? This is 132 net passing yards when you take away the sacks out of it. This is, you hold Kyler Murray to 145 yards and a 6.3 average per attempt. That's pretty good. But I think it was the crucial moments again. And, people get on to Mike Tomlin for his weighty downs comments, but it was true in this game that where the Steelers made their biggest mistakes in pass coverage, it was on the big downs. It was 3rd and long down the sideline to Greg Dortch. I mean, how does he make that catch? That's insane. And it's not that bad coverage there. It was just a great play by a guy you wouldn't expect to make a great play. And then the Rondale Moore in the end zone. I mean, that's insane. Where I thought the biggest issue wasn't even the secondary. It was the linebackers covering Trey McBride. It was putting Michael Walker in there on Trey McBride. And Jeff, the reason he led the team in tackles is because he was grabbing the legs of Trey McBride from behind on 8 of his 11 tackles, or however many it was. I mean, he just couldn't cover him. And so that string of plays on the 99-yard touchdown drive, and then early in the second half where McBride really took over for the Cardinals, that was really, to me, the difference in this passing defense looking really good and having a good day, and a really bad day. So I think the injuries to the linebackers, it can't be understated how big a deal that is to a team built around its linebackers. The edge rushers are linebackers. The middle guys, they call the defense, they handle the coverage schemes in the front seven. They are a huge component of this, and when you lose all of them, you're going to struggle, and they did today.
If I were to pick one statistic that really, to me, shines a light on where the Steelers went wrong, it's a two-sided statistic. It's third downs. Okay, third down offense. Listen to this. So the Arizona Cardinals went 10 for 17 on third downs. Pittsburgh 4 for 11. They won. You talk about weighty downs. Like, that's Mike Tomlin's one of his favorite things to say now. Oh, the weighty downs. You convert on third downs, extend drives, win field position battles. That's how you win these games. They did it. The Steelers did not. The Steelers couldn't stop it. The Steelers couldn't convert. It comes down to little things like that. Sometimes it can be as simple as who does better on those conversion downs. Yep. And then when you look at the red zone, numbers, 3 for 3. Arizona was 3 for 3. They were never stopped in the red zone once. Bend, don't break means you can't give up 3 touchdowns in the red zone. So these are not all the Steelers' defense. Obviously, the one drive was basically started in the red zone after the fumble or botched snap between Trubisky and Cole. But still, this is not the Steelers' MO for success. It hasn't been all season, and this is where we are. So that's where I'm residing right now. Let's go to I want to get the super chat up here before we call it a show here shortly. Andrew Palladino gives us $9.99. He said, I know there were injuries, but I couldn't help notice how hard the Cardinals were hitting today. The more physical team won. Horrible look for Tomlin, looking more and more like a 9-8 finish. As a 7-4 team entering this week, that would be quite the gut punch, to say the least. Let's talk special teams quickly. Chris Boswell misses a 45-yard field goal. It's kind of like one of those when it rains, it pours type situation. That was both literal and figurative today. But Presley Harvin didn't really wow us with any field flipping punts either. Brian, what was your thought? Miles Killebrew, good Lord, Miles Killebrew. He is a part of the special teams. You might be going off on him, Brian. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was about to. 3 penalties. I'm a big Miles Killebrew fan, and I said, Miles, not again. And my son's in the car with me, and he's saying, what's wrong with Miles? Is he not a good player? No, he's a very good player for the special teams, but boy, is he making some dumb mistakes today. And it was just, those are killers. When you give them more opportunities on some of those dumb penalties, and I really thought that they were absolutely, they weren't necessary. Now, were they bad calls from the officials? No, I'm not saying that at all. They weren't. I mean, the Steelers were committing these penalties, and they got called for it, and I have no problem with the referees throwing the flag because that's their job to do it. So I'm not saying that those were ticky-tack calls. In fact, there was one play where I'm like, wow, they're actually going to call that not a touchdown after like the whole Deontay redo this week. But Killebrew, he was killing them. So we don't have to we always have this conversation after the show, winners and losers, and we talk about it because Jeff has the article and Jeff has the show tomorrow. Jeff, if Miles Killebrew is not on your losers list for tomorrow, I am going to come over there and I am going to let the air out of your tires. Okay. I know where you live.
I think my tires are safe. We'll put it that way. I think my tires are safe. Jeremy, you want to talk about special teams at all?
Yeah, I mean, when it rains, it pours. It really does. And Boswell missing the kick, automatic for him at 45 yards, and then it's a miss. You just know. I tweeted out again from the Steel Curtain Network, from the Steel Curtain Network that you just know that it's not your day when Chris Boswell is starting to miss field goals. So The punts weren't great. Presley Harvin's just he's as hit or miss as they come as well. But really, it's the penalties and it's the field flipping type plays that you just can't afford to make. The face mask penalty that just kills you when you're already giving them the ball at the 50-yard line and then you already put them in field goal range with a penalty on the punt. That it's just inexcusable. It hurts. And it ruins games. It can actually be the reason you lose. And I think that was a big part of it today was just those dumb penalties and extending drives for them or making it easier for them. You just can't beat yourself. And, I say that the Steelers have 5 losses this year and really 3 of them are their own fault. They lost to themselves. And I would include this one in that because you had so many just blatantly bad penalties and you can't fall on fumbles, you can't force turnovers. You got to get out of your own way if you want to win against a bad team when you were having a bad day. And so it just didn't happen this time. And that's a big deal for the Steelers team. They got to get out of their own way if they're going to win.
Absolutely. Okay. I have nothing else to add on special teams. Let's do our final thoughts before we call it a show. Brian, I'll throw it to you first. Birthday boy, go ahead.
All right, there was so much anticipation for this game. I was talking to my nephew yesterday who was so excited. He goes, I cannot wait for tomorrow because tomorrow's the game where they break out. And I'm like, I did not stop him. I did not. I said, yeah, this is a game that they should win. And the Steelers are not that team anymore that lose to 2-10 teams. They're not that team anymore that plays down to their opponents. But I kind of felt like that, not as egregious as it used to be, but I kind of felt like that today a little bit. It feels like the culture is curdled and the standard is stained, and we're back from hope to hopeless again.
Yeah, there you go. Jeremy, final thoughts. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think we're in our feels today, as we typically get after a loss. And then when the Steelers win on Thursday Night Football, we'll find a way to say, why not the Steelers in the AFC this year again? And, the other thing I'd like to say is the cycle's broken, Jeff. It's over.
Right.
The cycle's over.
You're right.
But not in the way we were hoping it would be. We were hoping the cycle would end with a Steelers win today and then a Steelers win over the Patriots on Thursday Night Football, where they would typically have their bad loss. But no, the cycle's over, and it's because you lose in the 3-game series where you were supposed to have your better game. And this team, it's one of those situations where, if you look across the league, I'm sure as fans, we're like, the Steelers are the only team that goes in and loses to 2-10 squads and has issues. But I mean, think about Kansas City last year. They lost to the Colts, of all teams, who were on their way to a 4-13 record and with the 4th overall pick in the draft. It happens to everybody. We're focusing on it right now because it's our team and we know I guess the trends that happen to Mike Tomlin teams, but we're going to move on past this. And, maybe you lose to the Cardinals, but maybe now you beat the Seattle Seahawks and you're not supposed to win that game out in Seattle. That's how this team operates. So let's not lose all of our hope yet, but also Mike Tomlin needs to go sit down with his team and do a Jeff Hartman on a Friday morning and give him a heart-to-heart and say, hey, yo,
nice.
This can't happen again. This just cannot happen again. You've got to execute, because I put a lot of this on the players not executing. You got to do better.
Yeah, that's a good point. Let's get Tyler W. Gave us $5. He said this team got in its own head once Arizona went up 2 scores, playing desperate and undisciplined. The Steelers came in with swagger and got punked. The benefit here is, if there is a benefit, is that they have a chance to rebound. This wasn't a playoff game. This wasn't you have to win to get into the playoffs. They do have an opportunity to rebound. And just like the last time they had a Thursday night game, they're coming off a loss. They're going to have to, as Mike Tomlin will say tomorrow at noon on Monday, we got to turn the page quickly and we got to put it behind us and all this stuff. And so because of that, they'll have an opportunity to get this out of their mouth quickly, but this is going to sting for a while, and that's fine. So, all right, next on Thursday night, Bryan will not be there because he'll be at the game. So I will be here. Dave will be here. Jeremy, you're more than welcome to join if you don't want to stay up super, super late. If not, we get it too. Nonetheless, good show, gentlemen. And we will see you next time on another post-game show. Take it easy.